Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I'm originally from a place called Clydebank, which is just outside Glasgow, the west end of Glasgow. It was primarily a shipbuilding, famous for John Brown's engineering, and also singers who'd also done the sewing machines. Grew up in a council estate. My mum, my dad, my brother. My dad was a professional football player, so from a very early age I got into football. So football was my main sport, but I also enjoyed other sports. I was really into cycling, tennis, golf, and a lot of my pals would have been similar. So we played in the same football teams growing up. Keen, as I say, had some bad injuries, so that sort of curtailed my football sort of career. And then from there, met my wife at college. We were two sons, Kieran and Reese, and we were struggling at the time in terms of finding employment and something to do. So I suggested that I would join the TA. So I joined the TA as a medic. I was a trainee nurse at university. And then from there, after about a year of being in the TA, I suggested, right, what about we go into the army? And I'll maybe continue my training in the army. So originally the plan was to go in and train, finish my training as a nurse. But then I wasn't sure at what stage I would go in, and we weren't sure if we wanted to take the chance of having to do 5 years minimum in the army. So my second choice was police. So I applied for the army as a Royal Military Policeman. Got accepted and then started my training back in June 2001.
Talk me through that life, because you obviously have served in Warzones and stuff like that. Could you talk us through that, and I suppose how that evolved to you? You got injured, didn't you, as well, and how that evolved?
Yeah, well, as I say, I joined June 2001. Went to Winchester and done my 12 weeks basic training. It happened to be, I think it was week 11 of our training, and then 9/11 happened. We were one of the only trainees at the time who had done weapon handling test. So we were called out that night and we were put on guard as a QRF with a guard at Winchester ATC. That was obviously the start of it all. I then went on to do my military police training in Chichester. I passed out of there in May 2002, and then I was posted to Germany, part of 7 Armour Brigade in Hona. We got there, carried out our training. Obviously, I think things started to get in the wind about possible things happening in the Middle East. January 2003, we found out we were going to get sent to Iraq. We get sent out to Kuwait at the end of February 2003, and then obviously we were part of the battle group in terms of the initial invasion of Iraq. Spent a number of weeks outside a town called Azubaya before we were relieved, due to the fact that at early stages 3 engineers had been ambushed and taken hostage. So the belief was they were taken to Azubaya. So we were part of what they would call a ring of steel. So there was vehicle checkpoints set up all around there. So we were there for about 4 weeks doing that before we were relieved. Then we obviously moved into Basra. We then took over a police station in Basra. We were in the same police station for about 6 weeks, where we were basically the law for Basra. Then moved back into the palace, and then I was called back 4 weeks before the rest of my unit, due to the fact that my wife was pregnant and they thought there might have been difficulties with the pregnancy, so I came back 4 weeks early. We had my daughter in 2003. Noticed some changes in behaviour, never thought anything of it. 2005, I was getting ready to go on my second deployment to Iraq, and 4 weeks before going I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So I basically found a lump on a Wednesday night. I had an appointment for my daughter and the doctors on the Thursday. So when I was in with her, I asked the doctor, I says, look, currently got glandular fever, however I found this ache in my right testicle. Was that normal? So the doctor examined me, says, right, I want you to take this up the stairs to the interpreter. Took it up the stairs to the interpreter. She got on the phone, came back off, gave me a note saying you've got an appointment tomorrow morning at urology in Sela. I went back down, told the doctor. Friday morning, got up, drove to Sela, into the private clinic, had an ultrasound done. Germans being Germans, quite blunt, straight to the point. Mr. Clocker, you have a tumour. Printed off the letter, says I want you to take this straight to your doctor. Walked out, broke down in the corridor. We drove back to the doctors at Horner, went in, saw the doctor. He read the letter, straight on the phone. Right, you're going into hospital this afternoon, go and get your stuff. And it was just a complete whirlwind. Went into hospital, came down with the same infection that my daughter had. They had to wait a week. I was on IV antibiotics. And then they eventually done the operation and then removed my right testicle and some of the tissue and said it was actually quite an invasive tumour that I had, but they thought they'd caught it in time. And then that was late September, started my radiotherapy, start of December. If I had a gun after the first day, I swear I would have shot myself. I've never experienced anything like that, and I would never hope to experience anything like that again. Because it was all private healthcare, the Germans obviously, I was getting treated by the Germans, but was also getting seen by the med centre, but the med centre hadn't dealt with anything like that before. So that evening I'd been violently sick all day, got taken back to the med centre, violently sick. They tried a anti-sickness injection, didn't work. Tried a second one, didn't work. Tried a third one, I stopped being sick. They then sent me to the hospital in Hanover, which was 50 miles away. Seen there, get sent home. Radiotherapy the next day, exact same thing happened. Straight to the med centre. Tried the injection backwards, didn't work. Tried the second injection, stopped me being sick. So the whole process was quite traumatic, but also really rapid. So it was like a whirlwind. I mean, you've just been literally 3 months after being told you've had a tumour that's removed, suddenly you're going through this treatment and you're experiencing the worst thing ever. Your family are seeing like that, they're worried about you. So eventually I got put on medication, which helped my radiotherapy, completed my radiotherapy. And then I returned to work in 2006, and then I was posted to Northern Ireland, 2007. And then I was had 3 different jobs in Thiepval Barracks in Lisburn. And then 2009, I was playing semi-professional football and had a serious leg fracture on the first game of the season. Fractured both my tib, my fib, damaged my knee in 3 different places. I broke down coming off the pitch because I just had this feeling that I would never play football again, and obviously football was a major part of my life. Spent a week in hospital, had an operation to put in a tibial nail, come out of that, noticed problems with my foot. A couple of months later, my mood started to seriously deteriorate, to the point where I thought I didn't want to be here anymore. It was just, I felt like a prisoner in the house. I felt like I was a burden, and I just wanted to end it. One morning, my welfare officer, she phoned round and I broke down on the phone to her. She says, right, give me a minute. She says, do not do anything, I'll phone you back. She went away, she phoned me back 2 minutes later. She says, there's a car coming round to pick you up, you're going to see the doctor. So I get taken to the doctor. Spoke with the doctor, she asked me what was going on, told her my feelings, told her how I felt. She got onto the phone straight away. Happens to be a psychiatric team based in Thiepval, so I was put in contact with them. Went to them, and then during my period with them, I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome in relation to my leg, which affects my nervous system. But I wasn't too aware how much that had affected me at the time. The main thing was obviously the mental health. So after a few months, they eventually diagnosed me with PTSD, in relation to Iraq. So they treated me for that to begin with. It then became clear further down the line there was some other underlying problem. I was assessed again, and then I was basically diagnosed with a second form of PTSD in relation to my testicular cancer. So for 3.5 years I was under their care before I was eventually medically discharged in relation to my leg. Now, with regards to CRPS, I had no idea how bad it would affect me. So for about 3.5 years I was on and off crutches. I had 4 operations on my leg and foot, and it still hadn't really flared up to the extent that it would in 2018. So I was trying to do something to help my mental health, so I got into football coaching. So I ended up coaching with Glentoran, worked my way up to reserve manager with them, done some coaching on the side myself to get me at the house, to help the mental health. But there was still episodes where I was still really struggling with my anger. Was joining the football games with the players and thought, yeah, this is okay, I can do this now. And then 2018 came along and I got the opportunity to go to Vegas with a Help for Heroes team to the US Air Force's trials for their Warrior Games, which was where Prince Harry got the idea for Invictus Games. So I went out to Vegas. So I thought, I'll do cycling because it was a sport I'd done as a boy, and I always thought, I'll get back into it, Never done it. So I thought, I've got 6 weeks to go to Vegas, I'll now use this. So in the lead up to Vegas, I'd actually tried to get my wife to talk me out of going, because again, the anxiety was a major issue with me. Being away from my family caused real anxiety. And she says, no, I want you to go. So I says, okay, we'll go. Trained for 6 weeks on a bike to go. Thought, that's great, I'm enjoying this. Last training session, started to get a little pain in my groin area. And I thought it was due to the fact I'd adjusted the saddle. So I changed it back, but I couldn't settle this pain down in my groin and my lower back. So I came off the bike, never thought anything of it. Went out to Vegas. For the week we were there, we'd done the build-up training to the different events. I'd rode a bike that they had given me. It was fine. The morning of the event, started the race. 40 minutes into the race, I got this pain in my groin, this pain in my lower back, and it just intensified to the point that I actually crossed the start-finish line 3 times, and every time I crossed it, I got round the bend, I was burst into tears with the pain. Got to the bottom of the course in tears with the pain, and I thought, I'm not letting anybody down, I'm finishing this race. Finished the race, collapsed after I crossed the line. Horrendous tremors going down my right leg, my lower back. Got taken to the ambulance. There was a physio and a doctor in the ambulance. Gave me morphine, gave me a thing called battlefield acupuncture, and it's little gold studs that they put in my left ear to try and help with the pain. Gave me a second injection of morphine. Then the physio, for some reason, said to me, can you move your foot? And I never thought anything of it. So I could push my foot away, but I couldn't bring it back. It was just the rebound action brought it back. And I thought, right, that's strange. But 10, 15 minutes later, she said, can you move your foot again? Tried to move my foot, couldn't move my foot. It was like looking at somebody else's leg. I then got taken to the med centre. I then had my bloods done, and the doctor says, I want to test you for something. And I thought, wait, what's he talking about? Test me for something. So he took my bloods, he went away, he came back an hour later and says, right, I was testing you for a condition called rhabdomyolysis. He says, so your blood levels are really high, so it's showing that's the condition you've got. So it's basically your muscle starts to break down and the proteins then go into your bloodstream, and it leads to kidney failure. So because I was a veteran, they couldn't keep me in the med centre, so they sent me to the hospital in Vegas. Went into Vegas. Doctor looked at my notes. He said, I'm going to check your bloods as well, check my bloods as well. Now, I think your bloods level for what they check for is meant to be somewhere between, I think, 250 and 300. And I think at the time when they rechecked me, mine was at 14,000. So I was put on a drip straight away. I was on a drip for 4 days. Lost the use of my foot completely for about 3.5 of those days before the movement started to come back. started to get tremors every day. I would get serious tremors that would come on, maybe 3 or 4 attacks a day in my right leg, where I'd have to fight it, all coming from the CRPS. So spent the 4 days in the hospital, got out, last couple of days, flew back, told I couldn't do any physical activity until my blood levels had got back to normal. So again, my mood dropped really bad, really downhill. So after I got round that, my friend managed to get me back into the gym, so I slowly started to get back into the gym again. And was basically told that I wouldn't be able to ride a road bike. I could ride it gently, or an exercise bike, but I couldn't go into one if I was wanting to race or anything like that ever again, because the trauma was bringing on the condition in my leg. So I got to October that year, and I got a message from a coach at Mary Peters Track who I'd met before we went out to Vegas, because she was coaching some of the other guys that were going out to do throwing events out there. And she messaged me and says, do you fancy trying wheelchair athletics? And I thought, that's a bit strange. Says, but I can't run, I can't do anything, I need to do something. Okay, I'll come and give that a crack. And then for the next 6 months, I learned how to do sprinting in a wheelchair at Mary Peters Track.
That's some journey, isn't it? Like, having to deal with all that. But as you say, like, I know where you are today. So thinking about all that and starting on that journey into sport again, I suppose is the easiest way to describe it. At that stage when you started using the wheelchair on the track, were you thinking about that sort of elite level, or was it just a passive, like were you doing it for the enjoyment of sport, or did you already have that mindset, right, if I'm going to do this, let's compete?
Well, I got into it knowing that there was trials coming up for the Invictus Games. When I first started, I didn't think it would be something I'd really be able to do until I get into it. But being a keen sportsman, once I got into the sport, I wanted to see how well I could do. Not thinking I could do anything major. So there was the trials for the 2020 Invictus Games at The Hague, and they were in July 2019 in Sheffield. So I trained in the lead up to that, just using one of the basic intro wheelchairs, racing wheelchairs. Took it to Sheffield, competed in the 100 metres and finished second. So I got silver in that, which was more than I imagined. I then also done hand cycling. So in the lead up to it, I managed to try a little bit of hand cycling. So I done hand cycling as well. So I done the time trial around Sheffield town centre, and I got a bronze in that, the first time I'd been on the road in a hand bike. At that point, you're still not sure what's going to happen, because you're obviously, you've done well, but you've still got to go through the selection process. So I applied for the selection process, obviously in the lead up to those trials. And then in, I think it was late August, start of September, I got an email saying that I'd been selected to represent Britain or UK at the 2020 Invictus Games at The Hague. I thought, okay, so where do we go from here? So went to the first training camp, took the chair that I'd been using at Mary Peters, done the first training camp at Loughborough University, and one of the guys said to me, have you thought about doing a GoFundMe page for a wheelchair? And I thought, no, I've never even heard of that. He says, I'm going to do that. So I came home that night, set up this GoFundMe page to see if I could get help with a wheelchair. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days after setting it up, I got an email from an old friend who I served with in the military police. And he worked for a guy who was ex-RAF, They'd done cyber security, and his boss had asked how much I needed for the chair, and I says, well, I think a chair's round about £5,400. He says, well, he's willing to give you the whole lot for the chair. So I'd already some money saved up, and then I also got in contact a woman who set up a charity called Shrapnel. Her son was a Marine and he got killed in Afghanistan, and she set up this charity to help like wheelchair sports. So she contacted me as well, and she said she wanted to offer me money. So I thought, blew my neck. So my friend's boss ended up buying me my first racing wheelchair, a proper racing wheelchair. And the money that she offered me, she then bought me the handbike. So I bought a second-hand handbike off a guy who used to race. So I trained in the chair. Then COVID obviously came along. So we thought, nobody known really about it. We thought it's only going to be a short break. I'll go ahead in 2021. So all these Zoom groups were set up for the cycling team, the wheelchair team. I managed to get a set of rollers to train at home, and then trained, and then obviously 2021 came along, it got cancelled again. My mood went seriously downhill again in January 2021, where I really struggled mentally again, because the thing that I was aiming for had been put back, and because of the way COVID was going at that point, nobody knew what would happen. So for me, the thing that was helping me and keeping me positive was now at the side. So I really struggled. Obviously the track started opening up later in 2021, and we found out that September 2021 the games were probably going to go ahead in 2022. So I forced myself back to the track, got myself back in it. A lecturer of mine at college, he set me up a strength and conditioning program, even though I could do it myself, but it was nice to answer to someone rather than always try to do things yourself. And from September 2021, I probably trained as hard as I've ever trained for anything. I was training 6 days a week. I was training on the track twice with my coach. I was training outside my house on a Sunday doing wee house sprints in my chair. I had 4 sessions a week, strength and conditioning. And I thought, you know what, let's go to this games and be the best version of me. And more importantly, I didn't want to embarrass my family. That was the main thing, that when I trained in the house, because I'd set up a gym in my house, I thought every time I struggled to try and motivate myself to train, the one thing I always went back to was, I'm the one to embarrass my family. And that made me train, as I say, as hard as I've ever trained. And then you're looking at wee things like previous Invictus Games, and you're sort of thinking, well, who's competing at this games? Where did they finish? And then you start to sort of go, well, that guy competed. So in my head, there was an American, and I thought, right, he's won silver in all 4 events at the last games. He's obviously trained leading up to Sydney in 2018, so he's got about 6 years training on me. I says, well, at least we'll go out and we'll give it a go, and if, as I say, if he beats me, he beats me. As long as I'll try and win a medal. If I don't, at least if I perform well, I'll be really happy with that. Went out to the Invictus Games, The Hague, April 2022. First event was the 1500 metres. My mum was there, my daughter was there, my wife was there. My friend, whose boss bought me the chair, him and his wife were there. His boss came out and his wife. So we had lunch before the 1500 metres, and then went back to the chair. And I went to the toilet, and then my wife just happened to phone, and it was probably the worst thing she could have done. I just completely broke down on the phone. I was just overwhelmed with everything. She says, do you want me to come round? I says, no, just that'll make it worse, just leave me. So I went back to our team tent. I had my wheelchair set up out the back. And I just got myself ready, and I put on my hoodie, and I put my hood up, and I put my sunglasses on, I put my headphones over the top of my hoodie. And it was like, I just wanted to shut the whole world out.
There's a class picture of that, isn't it? I've seen the picture, like a really iconic video. Yeah.
And I didn't even know that picture was taken. And it's one, it's going up on the wall.
Yeah.
And it just went into my own world. And then when we went across to the track, and I could see the Scotland flag in amongst all the Union Jacks, and I knew where my family were, and I couldn't look at them. I couldn't. And I literally walked up and down this little 5-yard patch of the track. That's when the picture was obviously taken. And I just couldn't speak to any other athletes, didn't want to be involved with them. I just had to stay in my own world. And then getting into the chair and went round, and I think my wife must have told people, and all the British were all together, all the crowd, and she must have said something, because when we went past them, obviously the 1,500 metre line, we were just at the opposite side of the track when the gun went, and went by them for the first time. Unbelievable. It just, the thought even now still gets me emotional, because that support was unreal. And every time, it was real funny, because you went past them, and then it went a wee bit quiet to the bend, and then you went past the Americans, and then they would cheer, the team would cheer them on, and then it would go quiet again, and then you got onto the home straight, and then it just went on noisy again. And it's the best, it's one of the best, if not the best thing I've experienced in terms of that support for you. I ended up getting bronze in the race, and thought, that's unreal. Went away that night, and next morning got up and felt really chesty, bit throaty, felt there was stuff needed to come up, had to go into the toilet, was coughing up green phlegm. I thought, no, again, this always seems to happen. Every time you're building yourself up for something, something always happens to you. And with everything that happened to me over the years, it became like a major issue with me, that I always felt that something bad was always happening when something good could be happening. So I went to the track that day. I had the 200 first, I think it was about 10:30. I had the 100 at 12:05, I think it was, and then I had the 400 at 5:15. So we got to the track, and I just went, same setup again. Hood up, sunglasses on, headphones over the top, and just went into my own wee world. Warmed up, same music. My mate, who ran the day before and couldn't run, he said, I'll help you with your chair the day. So every race, Craig took my chair across to the track to the call tent. And then we sat in the call tent, and then we'd go out, and I would just sit in the track, just stare into space. And we got called up for the 200 metres, and gun went, and I thought, I went, and the gun went again. I went, oh no, who's got a false start? And I thought I had a real good start there. And I thought, okay, went back. Gun went, and I went. Crossed the line, turned round. There was nobody there. And it was only later on somebody said to me, Mark, you absolutely smashed that. And I thought, smashed that? That means about 5 or 10 metres. Saw the feedback later on, I won by about 35, 40 metres, and I couldn't believe it. And then we went away, had the medal ceremony. Then it was like medal ceremony, medal off, back across, prep for the 100. Went to the 100, hood was down, cap was on backwards, headphones on, sat on the floor, and I just looked about everywhere, tapping the head, tapping the foot, and going, this is where you sort of belong. And it's strange, the only way I can explain it is when people looked at Usain Bolt, and Usain Bolt just stood in the start line, and he's just waving and does his wee things and bopping and dancing to music. And for me, I can understand where it was, because I won the 200 metres. Suddenly I had this feeling of, yous all have to beat me now. I'm the one that yous now need to beat. And it was just a real strange from the first two races. Took in everything, got to the start line, sitting in the start line, waiting to go, and all of a sudden the stadium announcer puts on Hey Jude, and the whole stand singing Hey Jude and swaying, and you're just thinking to yourself, we just start this race. and the sun was beaming, it was warm, and then it went bum, and I went in the 100 metres, and I'm about 20 metres down, I'm looking to out my corner of my right eye, and I'm thinking, who's that next to me? Somebody's still here. I need to go again. And I went again and ended up winning the 100 metres, and the guy actually was my right, was my teammate Dan, who actually beat the American to come in silver, so we got a 1-2, which was brilliant as well. And then, same thing again, whirlwind, medal across, kit off, stuff on, medal ceremony, medal off, back to the call tent, sitting for 20 minutes, and then getting ready for the 400 metres. And I just thought, I don't know if I can do this. I physically don't know if I can do this. Went to the track, headphones on, same routine, same music, same song finishes, into the chair. Guy says, you can go round there if you want to warm up. So every athlete went round the track, and I went, no, I'm going that way, and went the short way. I thought, I'm done here, but we'll see how we go. Cameraman comes in, your face as usual, you do your wee wave, he walks past me, I'm then sick in the track with the gel that I had because I couldn't eat. Sick in the track, missed that by the camera, he disappears, go. And the 400 went. And every race had a different feeling. You know, the 400 we went, and I thought, I've just got to go my own race. Forget what's happening because you're struggling physically, just go. So I went, and 150 to go, I could actually pick out my daughter's voice in the crowd, shouting, go Dad! And there's maybe a couple of hundred people there, and I could hear this voice, go Dad! And we got round, and I could hear the vibration of the wheels coming, this boom, boom, boom. And I'm thinking, keep going, don't panic yet, you're still, come at this bend, once you come at the bend, that's when you go. And as I was getting closer and bend, I hit the compensator, and waiting, I hit the compensator on the straight, and I went, and you could just hear the crowd, the noise of the crowd, and it was like an excitement, but a nervousness at the same time, because they knew the American was coming up on me, and went again, and they just get louder and louder and louder. And I ended up crossing the line for my third gold medal in a day, which even now is just like still a pinch me moment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people would be happy with the bronze and 1 gold, but you're a bit selfish there, mate. You took 3 golds and a bronze. But obviously that was a sport that you'd taken up and achieved unbelievable success with. But you come away from it, and to a degree, I suppose, you've come away from it, and you decide to have a crack at golf. And again, there's obviously a mindset thing there, because like you've took up golf, and talk us through that. So you're obviously competing at a very high level with golf now as well. So can you just sort of share even, your last year of golfing? Because how long have you been competing? Really, 2 years?
Yeah, no, this is my first full season. I just started last season. Yeah. Started last year. From the Invictus Games, the next day after winning my medals, my roommate went out, and I broke down. I broke down with the emotion. Oh, it was just so overwhelming, because the night before I got hundreds of messages for people, and when you see that amount of support for people, it does like overload the senses. So came back from the Invictus Games. Because of the delay, Dusseldorf was 2024. So I applied for Dusseldorf. I got selected as a reserve, and ended up going out as a non-competing reserve, but I got asked to be the wheelchair coach. So that kept me fulfilled through 2023 into 2024. come back from Dusseldorf, and I thought, what do I do? I need something to aim for, because obviously the last 5 years I had a mindset, but I'd also goals to aim for. But in terms of my mental health, it was a focus. Where it was a short-term focus leading to a long-term focus, I had a focus. But now I had no focus. So I started to struggle again. And my wife was in night shift one night, and I just started playing golf again the winter after I came back from Dusseldorf. And I thought, I wonder if there's anything to do with disabled golf. So went online and found EDGA, who were previously the European Disability Golf Association. And it was a Friday night, I always remember it was a Friday night. I filled the application in, sent it off, and I thought maybe I'll not, because with my condition, it's like one of the hardest conditions to classify in sport, because it's classed as a pain condition, even though it has secondary physical effects. So if you've got the secondary physical effects, that's different, but you've got to be assessed for that, which I have. So I originally put it in, I thought maybe not. So I got an email back actually the next day, and the guy says, well, I'm not sure because of your condition. So I ended up that night adding my passport photo and something else onto the thing to send back to him. And then the Sunday came, and I had a return email from him that says, okay, we're going to give you, an EDGA access pass, which is the lowest level for disabled golf. It allows you to play certain events, but not all. So I got that, and he said, right, when you go to an event, you can ask to be assessed to get upgraded to the WR4GD pass, which is the top level pass. And I says, okay. So I went to the Scottish Open May last year, and I said to them before I came, I wanted it assessed. So they made me walk the golf course, and the assessor kept coming out the bushes, appearing from nowhere, and you're going, he's watching me here round this golf course. So I eventually managed to hobble round, and he says, right, Mark, come on, I'll assess you. Took me in, done the full assessment. He says, well, you've got upgrade. He says, I'd have upgraded in 3 different ways that I've checked here. So if you failed in one, there's still an R2. He says, and you'll also use a buggy now from then on in. So I says, okay. So I ended up playing, and I think I finished 9 in the net category. So you've got 3 categories. You have the gross, which is a handicap up to 7.4. You have the net, which is 7.5 up to 18.4 handicap. And then you have a staple board for anybody above 18.5. So I was in the net classification because my handicap at the time was 14. So I finished 9th in the net classification. But because I'd been upgraded to the WR4GD pass, that also gets you on the world rankings. So you get ranking points for every event. So I got my first ranking point. So after I think my first event, I think I was sitting like 320th in the world out of maybe 500 odd. And I thought, that's not bad after one event. So the next event was the Irish Open at Roganstown, and I finished tied first, and I got beaten count back in the net classification. And then the following week I went to Mazarine to play in the British Blind and Disabled Open. So after the Irish Open, I thought I'll try and break 200, and I'd actually got up to 91st in the world. And then I played the British Open, and after the British Open we checked the rankings, and I was up to 3rd in the world. I then went and played an event at the London club, which wasn't as good, and during that period I get moved up to number 1 in the world, where I was for about 6 weeks. And it happens quite often when new players come in because of the short amount of rounds. So as a result of that, I went to the European match play, the RSM European match play at Northants as one of the 8, which was a great week, and that was my last event. So we thought we'll try and play a wee bit earlier this year. So I went to Portugal in January, and they had 2 events back to back in the same resort with 2 courses. So I played 3 days at one event, and I finished 5th. We had a day off, chest infection again, and I thought, here we go again. This is just, it's like pause, repeat, pause, repeat. So I went out to do the practice round. Didn't even think I'd play the practice round. Managed to get round it. I thought, I'll go out the next day. I can hardly swim. We'll give it a crack. And I went out on the Friday and I had probably one of the best rounds of my life. So I was leading overnight. And I went out the next day and I basically did the exact same round and ended up winning my first event in Portugal. I think I won by about 11 shots. So the next event was a G4D event, which was held in Ireland. So all G4D events are usually invitational. So this one was for Irish golfers only. So I went to that it was run in conjunction with the West Ireland Amateur Championship, which is one of the biggest amateur events in the whole Ireland. Rory's won it, Padraig Harrington's won it, Shane Lowry's won it, Rory's caddy Harry's won it. So it's a massive event. So to get to play in amongst that event and our own event was great. And I ended up winning that. That was my second event, but to win in Ireland amongst Irish golfers was great. I went to the Scottish, not so good. Went to the Irish. Reverse of last year, finished tied first, but this year I won it in count back. And then we went to G4D RD, which was held in conjunction with the Women's Irish Amateur Championship. So again, we got to play at a time there was a major championship on. Went to that, won that. That was the 4th event I'd won this year, and I just thought, what's going on here? Handicap was coming down. And then all of a sudden I got an invite one Friday night to play at the G4D Tour at the Betfred British Masters. And the G4D Tour events are the highest events in the disabled tour. And then the week later I got a second invite to the G4D Tour event at the FedEx Open de France at Paris. And I thought, what's going on here? So I said I'd love to accept it, and accepted my invite. Went to the Belfry with my son caddying, and it was 10 players, and it's invite only, so it's 10 of the best players in the world, basically. And I just got overwhelmed with it all. My anxiety kicked on in the very first hole of the first round, and I spoiled my round. As I said that night, my son says, "No, look, we'll just go out and we'll just play the next day." Went out the next day, got myself in contention, and then sort of fell away again. Again, the anxiety. And when my anxiety starts, it then leads to my anger, and then the anger is the real issue. That's what starts to affect my game. So I ended up finishing, I think it was 5th at the Belfry. So I had my invite to the FedEx Open de France. Now the winners of these G4D Tour events go forward to the Rolex Grand Final in Mallorca, and in the net classification there's only 4 players. So the winner of the FedEx in France would qualify for the Grand Final, the G4D Tour. So went practiced in the lead up to France. The Thursday before I left, I strained my neck. Got up on the Friday morning, could hardly move. So me and my mate, one of my good friends from back home, he was coming to caddy for me. We decided we'd try it saunas and steam rooms, so done that, helped it. Got up the Saturday morning to go, to the point when I was driving down to Dublin and I could hardly lift my left arm to hit the indicator, and we thought, here we go again. It's the same thing every single time, and then you think to yourself, it's the last opportunity as well to try and sort of do something big. So we got there, he was helping me put my coat on, he was helping me put my bag on, he was doing all the grunting with the bags and everything. So this Saturday night, loads of deep heat pads, tramadol, Buscopan, to try and sort this neck. Went out on the Sunday, played the practice round, restricted swing, but I was able to swing, but it was restricted. But I was actually hitting the ball up okay considering. So we thought, right, we'll give it a crack. So I was due to see the physio, one of the DP World Tour physios, on the Monday morning. So I went and saw the physio. He worked on me for 40 minutes, straight down to the range, warming up, and amongst all the pros, they're all there obviously for the main event. And we went out, played, wasn't great, was joint leader overnight, and we thought, if we're joint leader and I've not played anywhere near I can play, then we're in with a chance. The neck feels better. So we came up with a plan how we were going to play the next day, and just by chance, I'd get asked, could I get mic'd up for the first 5 holes of the next day? So you've got that added pressure going into the final round. So I played 5 holes with this camera crew and mic'd up and people following you and photographers. Done okay. And then we started to get into a wee groove and never looked at the scorecard. And then we got to the 8th and it was par 5 and I ended up taking an 8. And I was starting to go down my usual way. Should have done this, I should have done that, should have done that, should have done this. And Paul just bluntly just says, shut the fuck up. And I just sort of stood. And he had to walk and get the buggy. And the buggy wouldn't start because he was too close to the green, so he was faffing about trying to get his buggy to start. And I just sort of stood. And then I just sort of started laughing. And I thought, imagine taking an 8 there, and laughed. And it's the first time I've reacted that way. Went to the 9th hole, ripped this 3-wood. And from that moment on, we just played some really, really good golf, but it was more like, it wasn't like thinking ahead, it was just hit this shot, right, what have we got, hit this shot, what have we got now, put this, right, move to the next, what have we got here, hit this shot. And we got to the 16th tee, and Paul goes, how do you go into this scorecard, because it's an electric scorecard we use. And I says, the bottom left. I says, but I'm not looking at it. And he says, you want to look at it? I says, no, I don't want to look at it. I says, I'm not being funny. I says, see the way I've been played these last few holes. I says, see if anybody's beating me, fair play to them. I says, because I cannot play any better golf than what I'm playing. So he looked at it, never said a word. We played 16, played 17. We're standing at the 18th tee and he goes, look at the scorecard. I says, no, he goes, look at the scorecard. And I looked at the scorecard. I was 10 ahead, and I just started welling up. And he's like, just tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, 1 hole to go. Stood on the 18th par 3, played the shot we wanted to play. We put up, knocked the putt in, ended up winning by 11 shots. And it was just, that is probably the best achievement ever. When I talked to Ellen about the Invictus Games, the feeling I got winning those medals in front of my family was up there. But to do that under the circumstances was just one of the best things I've ever done. And then you walk inside and you're walking in, members of the DP World Tour are going, congratulations Mark, no bad for a squaddie. And you're thinking, who are you? How do you know my background? And then you've got pros walking up to you. How do you get on, Mark? I've just won, absolutely superb. And then you're going, this is surreal. Because I still always find I struggle with acceptance. I struggle with being in an environment and accepting I belong in that environment. I always see myself as an outsider, almost that imposter syndrome. Guys coming up to me, congratulations Mark. Other people coming up. And then you go outside and then you get presented a trophy in front of the other 9 players who are 9 of the best players in the world that you've played in front of and played against. And then the next day I'm walking through the car park and Min-Woo Lee walks across, one of the well-known professional golfers, And Paul goes, do you mind if we have a photograph? And he goes, not a problem, I'm taking a photograph of him and Paul. And he goes, oh, he's just watching. Paul goes, no, Mark's a G4D player, he won yesterday. And within a second, Manuel Lee turns around to me, goes, jokingly, goes, you any pointers since you shot 10 under for the back nine yesterday? And I'm thinking to myself, how do you know that? And it just, that was the moment where I think, actually, maybe I do sort of belong here. Maybe I'm accepting the fact that I'm part of this. And then it was, I was that much a whirlwind again. It was only the Wednesday night when I came home. I was lying in my bed, ready to go to sleep. We just got home that night from France, and I was actually going to message Paul downstairs. And I realised, I thought, where did I have that eagle in the back nine? And I went on to my phone, net eagle. I thought that was a par 4, no a par 5. It was a par 5 for us all week, and I thought it was a par 4. So I actually thought I'd played the back nine, the last 10 holes in level par, scratch, and I actually played the last 10 holes in 1 under par, scratch, in a championship course. And it's, to this day, it'll probably be the biggest achievement.
And I think, like, to put that into perspective, I don't think people, to clarify, you play the same week as the major championship. So come Thursday, Rory McIlroy's on the same course as you, and you know what I mean. So you'll play on the Monday and Tuesday.
You play the Monday and Tuesday.
Monday and Tuesday, and then
the pros will start.
Yeah, the pros will start. They do their warm up and pro-ams and stuff like that, leading into the major competition for the Thursday, Friday, into Saturday and Sunday. And the only major difference is the tee boxes will maybe be set back another 40, 50 yards.
Some of the tee boxes that we played off were only 10 yards in front of the pros. The longer holes, they could be 40 or 50 yards back. But then again, it's all
relative. Those boys are driving.
Yes.
So you're ending up, your second shots are roughly in the same
place.
They're all coming from the same place.
And you're playing into the same greens.
They're putting them 50 metres back because they'll drive to where you would land 20 or 30 metres forward. And that's just,
And it took us about 3 days to even for that to register.
Yeah. You're playing your second shots literally from the same spot, unless you're DeChambeau or he was going an extra few metres than everybody else. But generally, from most other pros, you're hitting your second shots
from the same position, into the same greens and putting on the same greens.
Well, that's interesting because you think of what you're doing, but one of the big differences, I suppose, for you is that you don't get prize money, do you? So you're bootstrap. You have to pay for a lot of this yourself, don't you, to actually go to these competitions because of the lack of support?
Yeah, it's hard because you always want to improve. You want to, as I say, these G4D Tour events are the pinnacle of disabled golf. By winning in France, I've now got to the Rolex Grand Final, where there's 2 finals on. You've got 6 players playing in the gross competition, and then you've got 4 players playing in the net competition, effectively a tour champion for the year, which is absolutely massive when you think how many disabled golfers around the world play, and I'm one of 4 players playing for this championship. But in order to get invited to these G4D Tour events, you've got to be doing well and be seen to be doing well in other golf events, and that's where the expense comes in. So it's really hard to try and get the best of both worlds, because you want to be invited to these events, but you also want to, in order to do that, you have to play. But in order to have to play, you have to pay. That's the thing. And luckily for me this year, there was 3 events in Ireland. 2 of them I could actually just drive back and forth every day, and it was fuel money because it worked out cheaper than trying to stay in a hotel. But then when you're looking at the events, every other event, you're either having to travel to Scotland, England, Portugal, all around Europe in order to try and get ranking points to do well in events, so you then get an invite to the G4D events, and it's really hard. Maybe looking at one event alone with entry, accommodation, travel, you could be somewhere between £500 and £700 for one competition. so it really limits you. Then you're obviously looking at golf equipment. Then in order to progress, you've got to try and work with a coach. Again, that's more money again in terms of that. One of the big things I learnt from the Belfry in France, when you're around the pros and you're on the practice area and the driving range and things like that, is the amount of balls that they would go through in terms of their practice, in terms of what they're trying to achieve through their practice. And you're sort of thinking, well, if they're hitting somewhere between 100 and 150 balls a day to get to the level there, that I'm not going to say I'm going to get to that level, but I want to be the best version of me. I would have to go out and practice every day, but it's not feasible, because for 90 balls alone, for example, you're paying maybe £13. If you try and do that 7 days a week, it's £91. Then the time you add on your club membership, then you add on, it just becomes ridiculous.
Yeah.
So then you're limited to how good that you can be due to certain restrictions that are out with your own, out with you.
But the reality is, like, sponsors and all could attach themselves to literally what is a world champion. When are you playing that event?
I play 28th of October. I fly out to Mallorca. It's the final this year has been run in conjunction with the hotel challenge. It's basically, they call it, I think, the hotel, I forgot the second part, it's basically Challenge Tours Grand Final. So it's been run in conjunction with that. So I head out on, me and my caddy head out on the 20th of October, the Tuesday, and then have the practice round on the Wednesday, and then first round Thursday, second round Friday, and then the third round and final round on the Saturday. So it's a long old week.
It's very interesting, like, listening to all that, and you think of, you mentioned at some stage there around, and when you were talking about the wheelchair, that you'd said, if you go out and do the best and somebody beats you, then that's acceptable, as long as you know you've put a shift in. And it's very, because I always talk about, you know, people wanting the view from the mountaintop but not wanting to walk up it. I think I'd actually written this down because somebody that put this much better than I could was, if you have your Jimmy Carr's version of it, like, everyone's jealous of what you got, but nobody's jealous of how you got it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth, isn't it? Like, if you...
It is. As I said going out to the Invictus Games, if I go out there and somebody beats me, fair play to them, because I know what I've put in, the work that I've put in, and if somebody can beat me, then they've put in as much work, if not more. Yeah. And the same goes for this grand final that I'm going to. I'll be practicing as much as I can. I'm doing stuff in my house. I've got a little gym I've set up in the house. I'll do stuff in the house. And if I go out there and I play what I feel is good and I'm content with that, and somebody beats me, then I'll be the first person to shake their hand, because I know that they've put the work in on their game in the lead up to it, and they've obviously put in a lot more. And if their game turns out to be better than me with their extra work, then you've got to accept that, because you're going to always come up against somebody someday that's always is better than you.
Because people can just... The easy response to successful people is just to think they're talented. They're just good at that. He's just a good footballer. He's just a good golfer. But the truth is that it's the combination of talent, environment, you know what I mean, and that hard work, isn't it? I think of it as more, that level of success comes through design as much as it comes through just raw talent, because you can have all the raw talent in the world, if you don't have the environment and the architecture around that.
I think a good way of probably putting it is design and desire.
Yeah.
I think if you've got design and desire, and it takes you to a point where you're at your optimum, or at your peak, or at your happy place, then you can't ask you can't ask more than that.
Yeah.
And I think, as I say, if you're setting up with a focus, in my case, it's all about my mental health. And I have these short-term goals, and I've achieved my short-term goals towards my long-term goal, and my long-term goal is turning up at something, the best version of me. What happens, happens.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't mind coming not first, as long as you've got to the level that you want to compete at.
Yeah.
And on occasions that will mean winning tournaments. On other occasions it's just going to mean it was somebody else's day.
Yeah.
But as long as you've that design phase of that, of everything that you've put in leading up to that, and I think that's testament to that. That's why I love looking at elite sport and elite athletes and having conversations with elite in that environment. And that's how obviously we met, was in your early days, I think, with a wheelchair, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I had the gym and stuff out at Lisbon, and we built up a good relationship.
Yeah.
But I think it's this concept of people just are good at this, so they'll be successful. And I'm going, no. The amount of design that actually goes into this, the planning, the prep, the work, and you can transfer that into any business environment. You can transfer, if you put those pieces that that you put in on a weekly basis to get your achievements, you can do that in a business environment. You just put the jigsaw together.
Yeah.
But you get some people with some talent, and then you mix in the design elements with that. You literally design the processes, the systems to go for them to optimize to the level that they can perform at. And when you put that together, you end up with what you have, which is 3 golds, bronzes, and world titles. And while the businessman might not have 3 golds and a bronze and a world title, what they do have is those achievements in their business. They hit those pinnacle levels. So, Mark, I have really, really enjoyed that, and I think I would like to give a shout out for you, because I know you're going to this World Tour Championship here in October, and like if there's any sponsors out there who would like to attach themselves to somebody that's in the last 4, so somebody that's going to come fourth in the world, regardless of what, but potentially could get involved and support somebody who could be the world champion by the end of October. So if there's anybody out there that would have a bit in their budget to support, so if you are a keen golfer or would like to attach yourself to a golfing talent from here in Northern Ireland that has so many other aspects to it, of the story behind your challenges, I'd certainly get in touch with me, and I'll pass them. But they can find you on Instagram, can they? Cloxy07, is it?
Cloxy07, yeah.
If you look up Mark on Instagram, Cloxy07, give him a follow, give him some support in any way you can. I know we've had a conversation, and you're going to start being a bit active there, because I think you have an amazing story that you need to be documented.
Thank you.
But Mark, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. And
thank you for having me.
Good luck. Maybe I'd love to see you maybe in November with something sitting on that wee table. So hopefully we can have you back with even for a wee short one, maybe in a bit of a celebration, hopefully.
That'd be nice.
Right. Good luck, mate. Thank you.